Hello, you. It's me. Yes, I live in the dark. Yes, I'm still experimenting with lighting. We'll get there eventually. Yes, I'm very warm, so I'm probably a little bit shiny. Today, we're going to talk about. Ooh, it's a glary cover. Through a Glass Clearly by Isaac Asimov, which is a short story collection. It's one of the first. It's probably the proper first short story compilation I've had to talk about, have reviewed. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do this. So I'll probably end up doing a few short story collection reviews with different formats. We'll just see which one I like the best and we'll keep that up. But I've got some notes, so we'll give it a go and see how this one turns out. This was published in 1970 when it cost 5 shillings, which is 25p. Can you even imagine if books today were that price? I know money scales, inflation rates change, but it's always a little like, just seeing a teeny little price like that on the back. I'm pretty sure the title is a play on a biblical quote, and I can't memorize quotes, so forgive me looking down, but the quote is, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known." Which basically means, as we're living life, we only see a little bit of it, we only understand a little bit of it, and then at the end everything becomes clear. So maybe the title is telling us that the stories inside are a look at real life through the lens of fiction? I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to be a reference to any specific story inside, but I would be interested to know if you have any ideas about the title of this one. It contains 4 short stories, longer short stories than his usual stuff, of Isaac Asimov, who is probably one of the most anthologized authors there is out there. I've read a few of his novels, like Caves of Steel, The Naked Sun, the first 2 Foundation books, which are great, but I really think short stories is where he absolutely shines. He's able to world build in such a short space of time and open these windows almost into worlds that do seem familiar and are relatable. You can almost imagine that all of his stories are set along diverging timelines in the same universe as a lot of the Asimov invented tech. Characters, alien races do appear multiple times in various stories of his. He's a great ideas man, but he really does fall down in character development, which I think is the problem with quite a bit of early sci-fi. So I think in short stories, he's almost better because he has sort of less room to be bad, and he doesn't have to develop characters as much in a short story. I've got a lot of his collections, and I think it does make sense starting my short story review tactical, finding out what I'm doing, with one that is incredibly small. It's probably smart. These stories are actually a bit obscure for him, but considering that he does write short stories about sort of fairies and demons, these are kind of like a 6 out of 10 on the Asimov weirdness scale. 0 being a story about a man going to the shops, and 10 being absolutely bonkers. There is a leaf blower outside. We done? The first story is called It's Such a Beautiful Day, and is set in the future where people are reliant on doors with a capital D to travel from building to building. They're sort of like coordinate programmable teleport gates, and everybody has totally forgotten what the outside world is like. And then one day a door malfunctions in a family home and a young boy is forced to go to school manually, essentially, takes the outdoor route and sort of becomes addicted to going outside. The mother is absolutely furious, very upset, thinks that he's going insane, calls a psychiatrist, and it's about trying to determine whether he's abnormal or reverting to a historical behavior that is the normal state humans should be in. So this one is really a cautionary tale of becoming out of touch with the physical world through a reliance on technology. The second story, Belief, is actually a really funny one. It's about a guy who learns to levitate, figures out that he can levitate, but can't get a single scientist to study him because they all think that his ability to do this is just ridiculous. And this one is really about the fragility of the law systems that we do build in science, and how once people get to a stage where they think they know everything, or think they know all the important bits, they're very scared to actually poke holes in a system they've created and say, oh, I'm not sure. So I think this story is about how good science is about stepping back and saying, I don't know, but let's find out, as opposed to, I don't know, shrug, shrug, oh well. The third one is called There Breeds a Man. And while it seems like one that's a lot more thought out and drawn out than the others, it is longer than the others. It was the most okay in the book. Like, the most okay. It was only okay. And it was quite forgettable. If I hadn't made notes on it while I was reading it, I probably wouldn't remember what it was about at all. So it's set in a Cold War scenario where people are rushing to develop an inertia dampening force field. And there's a scientist that's particularly good at seeing the obvious solutions to these questions. But he is adamant that once humanity, or a society within humanity, develops a certain level of technology, it is doomed to wipe itself out. It has been engineered by an outside force to wipe itself out. And this is expressed through his crazy suicidal tendencies, which he claims stem from knowing too much. Sort of, I have to die thing. It sort of posits that the only way for humanity to properly progress is to become immune to the penicillin, it puts it as, of suicidal thought, like bacteria in a petri dish, an experiment that we're part of. Becoming immune over the course of history to this suicidal tendency, which stops us from progressing and causes our self-destruction. It was a really meh story, and even at like 32 pages long, it's too much for me. I didn't like it. The last one is called The Sea Chute, and is set aboard a transport that's bound for Earth, and has been taken over by some aliens who are at war with Earth over a very minor territorial dispute. The story's about people discussing the aliens' nature as opposed to their own, the human prisoners on the ship, and sort of arguing and drawing straws to decide who's going to be the passenger that takes the big risk and tries to take back the ship. It's about, I think, there not really being sometimes a clear bad guy and a clear good guy in war. There were a lot of interesting monologues in it about perspective in wartime, about loyalty, about rules adhered to by both sides. And it's also about people stepping up to the mark in a crisis situation, and how the person that ends up saving you may not be the person you expected, because everybody's motivation to act is incredibly different. Hold this up again. I wasn't too keen on story number 3, but the other 3 stories I really did like. Asimov always has this feel to his stories that they are sort of witty critiques of human nature. And you can imagine him sitting there writing with a wry smile on his face and pressing the last full stop key with a smirk, almost. They're often funny, but not in a her way. He's a very intelligent guy, clearly, and does manage to tackle big ideas in a very small number of pages. I think all of these work well as short stories. I feel like Sea Chute, the last one, could have actually done with being a bit longer and being included as a scenario in a story about the human-alien conflict. I always love stories that have human-alien interaction between two species that have such ridiculously different mindsets and do struggle to understand each other's mentalities. And I always think the best example of this is the Thief in Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle's novel Footfall, which is incredible. If you haven't read it, go and read it. It is a bit of a slog. It's massive, but it's great. I love any story that examines humans from an outside perspective, and you read it and you're like, yeah, actually, objectively, we are quite strange. So if I was rating these stories individually, it would be 3 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 4 stars. So overall, I'm going to give this collection 3 stars. It's good Asimov, but it's not iRobot. It's not Bicentennial Man. It's not top rank Asimov. This is sort of mid-tier stuff of his. So yeah, I know that was a short one. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter now. I have a Twitter. I'll put the link down below. As always, there's more sci-fi on the way. I read a lot and I read pretty quick. If you've read any of these, if you've read any of these in different compilations, let me know where you found them, what you thought of them. Anything you think is sort of related to this that I enjoy, pop it down below in the comments. What did you think of the video? What did you think of the review? Yeah, pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you soon.